Boom. Do you have a lot of city noise in the back?
I can hear none.
Okay, great.
Better lighting though this week for you.
I am out of the office into the living room.
Gotcha.
Yep. Out of darkness, as they say.
How's life in the big city?
Oh man. Life in the big city moves at such, I mean, I know it's cliche, moves at such a frenetic pace as to like I feel like I'm sprinting everywhere I go and not making it.
Could you ever live there?
Yes. I mean, I think if all turns out as it's supposed to, kid will go to the School of American Ballet, and wife and I will move to New York City for the time that she is there. So,
Whoa.
like couple 2-3 years in New York, I would feel, or 4. I don't know how long the school goes for.
That is huge news.
I mean, this has always been the plan, kind of. If she gets in, I mean, here's the question: how far, if Austin showed real promise at, say, let's say dressage? Do men do dressage?
That involves horses, right? Not
Yeah,
dresses.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, dressage.
Men do
And
everything nowadays, by the way. It's
yeah,
okay.
perfect.
Yeah.
And the premier dressage facility, training facility, was in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Would you move to Oklahoma City? And Austin, he's not, didn't just like it. He's like wonderful at it, which I guess brings us all the way back to Kanoa Igarashi and his parents. But for you, like
This
if he's next level, what do you do?
this also feels like you're setting up an Eric Logan joke because he's from Oklahoma City and I think his kids or one of his kids is into doing something with
Horses?
horses anyways.
Look at the subconscious is sure an amazing thing.
Yeah. So this also relates to us trying to design a life for your kid, or maybe not design anything at all and let them figure it out. Because now that you're saying all this, I feel like I need to intervene and to influence him in some way so that he doesn't end up wanting to do dressage in Oklahoma, but instead wants to do whatever it happens to be in Florence, Italy.
See, but here's the problem though. Here's the problem is talents and abilities and desires happen where they happen, right? And I
I
think,
know.
and for you to be really good at something, for like, so today, for example, parents get to observe one day, 1 2 hour session at the School of American Ballet summer session. So today was the day. I just got out of there and looking around the room, right? Like to get in that room, it's a high bar already, and then you're trying to claw to the top of that room, right? And I think they take such a small amount of students to begin with, and then narrow that to a smaller amount. So realizing watching it, in order, you can't just be good. You have to be good naturally. You have to be super well trained because the training is a bunch of it. And then you have to have a desire to be able to put up with that kind of torture. And so those 3 things make for a ballerina. You could have 2 out of 3 and not make it, right? So let's say, I mean, it's one thing to say, let's just pivot him off to something else. But if he has both the skill at dressage, he had that dressage teacher who just like, man, this kid's got it, and I'm taking him all the way. He has the dressage, Mr. Miyagi, and then he also is out in the backyard riding on his. Oh, speaking of, have you seen that trick pony or the stick pony championships?
Oh yeah, I have seen
Yeah.
that.
So he's out when he's not on his horse. He's out in the backyard doing that, right? Sun is setting. Austin, it's dinner. You look out in the backyard. There he is doing his dressage. Uh, And so
It
that like do you so the question then is do you move to Oklahoma City for a couple years?
Nope. Answer is no. Look, there's I want to follow the kid at all costs and support it, but there's certain cities we would move to, certain cities we wouldn't. So that's
Which
it. And in New York City, you know, even if you don't like it, there's a real opportunity for growth if you go there. Like there's economic opportunity, there's all sorts of interest that I think you could appreciate it for a limited period of time and maybe even
thousand
get
percent.
something out of it. Whereas Oklahoma City, I just don't see that being a good move for any of us.
I'll tell you though, the 2 times that I've driven through Oklahoma City, once on the way to Vanderbilt and once on the way home from Vanderbilt, Oklahoma City has been the standout on the entire drive. I get to Oklahoma
Really.
City, I'm like, ain't half bad.
But
Ain't
could you
bad at
live
all.
there is the difference.
No, I mean, if I had to, like, I think you can live anywhere you have to, right?
Yes,
It,
that's
it,
true. But
like you
that's not what
figure,
we're doing.
yeah, but you figure out like stuff to do, ways to make it presentable, ways to make it okay during those years you have to live there.
There's certain mid-American cities that I have a desire to go to strictly to eat barbecue.
Oh man, Oklahoma City is one of them.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like I
Yes.
could go for 5 days because I need 2 days of like purging basically or like
Yep.
downtime in between,
Yep.
but then 3 days of really hitting the
Binging.
barbecue hard.
Yeah.
And then I'm flying home and, getting the seatbelt extender on the
Yep.
flight home.
Uh, the somebody had messaged me that it's been exactly a year since our dear Eric Logan was fired. That was a fast year.
Well, because of the
Brazil.
reminder is, of course, we're in Brazil right now for the event,
But I feel like
which,
there was,
but the
yeah,
men are in the water right now. It is round of 16, by the way. John Florence versus Seth Moniz in the water.
it looked so garbage when I peeked for a second this morning. It looked like windblown trash. Does it still look that bad?
It's pure junk, dude. So by the way, this is the grid. It's June 27th, 2024. Chas Smith, and I am David Lee Scales. Yeah, it's pure trash. Italo acts absolutely went ham, but it was still junky. And it's just, I don't think any of those surfers want to be there right now.
The I looked at the elimination round yesterday and realized what an American bloodbath round one was. Like, I think every single American got pushed into the elimination round, except maybe I think Seth Moniz won his heat. If we're going to call Hawaiians Americans for the sake of this program, I think everyone, including Hawaiians, all elimination round except for, yeah, Seth.
Well, Griff just made his heat, so he's through to the quarterfinals. Gabriel just made his heat, he's through. But the waves are big, they're well overhead, but it's just pure junk. Like
Yeah.
it's not entertaining. It doesn't look fun for the surfers. Um, I did watching Italo's post heat interview though. I realized he has spent way too much time in California because his English is very
Too good.
Californian. No, it's too bad. He should be in Australia or England or elsewhere. He's using the word like more frequently
Like,
than you and I do,
oh man,
which
that's like a real bummer.
it's a bummer. I wish that I did not do it. And it was Derek Riley who pointed it out at some point when you and I started podcasting together as a criticism. And I thought to myself, I don't think I say it that much. So then I listened to a show, and sure enough, it's in every single sentence I use. I use a like to as a comma, essentially.
Yeah, it's a real, I mean, poor Italo.
I know.
Poor bedraggled Italo.
I know. It's sad.
Italo went, I could say I feel like he's coming back in terms of his what do we want to call it? His like redemption story.
Agreed.
I feel he became distasteful for a minute, right? There was the initial introduction to Italo was pure unbridled joy,
Hmm.
charging, great surfing. Like it didn't seem like he was hiding things. And then
Right.
Italo entered his bodybuilding phase, I suppose, his shaved chest phase. And that got things got weird. Things looked weird. And then it felt like he was coming back. Except this turn to California, the California vernacular does not bode well.
He's going into chapter 3 of
Yeah.
the story. Also, how do you shave when you have that many ripples in your abdomen? You know what I mean? Like you really got to get in there. I feel like there's cuts liable to happen because it is like shaving cobblestones.
I feel if we had a men's grooming product as a sponsor, we could talk about how one shaves. But alas, I have no idea.
Once upon a time, we would and did. Okay, I want to cycle or circle back to New York just for a minute.
Yeah.
If you do live there in the future for 3 to 4 years, do you think what will be different? Do you think your earnings will go up because you're just kind of forced into that lifestyle that you're talking about? Do you think that your productivity in terms of writing will go up? What do you think will happen?
I think it has to. I think the city has like a wild energy that can't help but make you feel like, oh man, in my slow California deal, I wake up, I have breakfast, I check the surf, I this and that and the other thing. In New York, it's just like it's like you're on crack. And I don't know how you're not productive on crack.
I mean, you are. I
Yeah.
think there are high, it's probably one of the highest earning per capita cities in the world. The example you gave of ballet today, though, is a perfect microcosm of New York. That's what the city is on a larger scale.
High intensity that's weeding the week out as quick
Yeah.
as they come.
Yeah. You just can't make it if you're not a top performer, you know?
No, it's like, sorry, there's Oklahoma City for you, kid.
Exactly. Well, I've got a follow up from last week, a couple of follow up things.
I'm gonna move somewhere so I'm not so in the way. Hold on here. I'm
Okay.
gonna
Yeah.
go back
Take
to
your
the
time.
page. Just 1 second. Okay, here we are.
Back to the original spot from
Yep,
last year and last week.
exactly.
Okay. Follow up from last week. We were talking about Fletcher was putting his name in the hat to use his name for
Yes.
SurfAd's kid, and his dad, Backside Dave, came up in the conversation because it was his birthday. Well, Taylor from Survival League reached out and he goes, dude, Fletcher is still in the OG Survival League. And anytime, when you pick a surfer, there's a comment section that says, why did you pick that surfer? He always writes as the comment, Backside Dave has deemed it so. So
That's
the
amazing.
legend of Fletcher grows.
I mean, Fletcher and Backside Dave is like a perfect Adult Swim cartoon.
Totally. That is so funny. Um, and then Tony TR in the DR also chimed in about the tools to live by that we shared. Zoom has changed their interface, so I'm having a hard time finding where my calls are.
This is part of our slow or fast pivot to old man show.
Yeah,
How frustrating when anyone changes any interface.
100%. Okay, TR in the DR chiming in on last week's tools to live by.
DLS and Chaz, TR and DR here. Actually, TR and El Sal at the moment. So, a little follow-up on tools to live by their watches. Your dear listener whose wife gifted him a 610 Singleton. And the elephant in the room here is dear caller's surfing ability. It is so common to see old guy on the performance shortboard who actually isn't doing performance shortboard technique, where a bigger single fin actually would be perfect for his steez, which is leaning forward on the front foot to get speed, whereas the performance shortboard method to get speed is carving off the back foot using the rail, which a lot of older guys, they lose that ability or never had it. And I'm wondering if Wifey may have gotten some advice from the shaper who saw dear listeners surfing and said this would be a perfect board for him. And I do see a lot of people that you can't tell them this because they like the feeling of scooting along, doing a snowplow type of turn on a performance shortboard, when in reality that same technique is gold on a big, thick single fin. You get more speed from doing the front foot momentum. So, barrel or not, let us know. Work.
Was this an ability intervention with the wife and the shaper?
I love it. I want to think this is true and so, right? I would like to think the wife went to Shaper and said, hey, because I can't imagine she cold called a Shaper, right? She
No, the
went to a
wife had lots of
Shaper,
information.
wife had information and went to a Shaper that the husband uses, I'm assuming.
He didn't say that he's gotten boards from him in the past, but he said it was a well-respected shaper, like who's,
Okay,
seasoned, I think is the word that he
so
used.
even better if dude didn't know our caller. Wife went to him and he said, well, describe how your husband surfs. And she described it. And then he shaped the exact board for that would make him surf the best.
I got a 5 emails or DMs from people about this exact call last week. And they were like, look, a good board works, period. Like if there's a seasoned shaper who shapes a surfboard,
It works.
the board is going to work. It's if you can't figure out how to make it work, then that's an indictment on the surfer themselves, especially if the surfer admitted, I tried it in a wide variety of conditions. So now,
Ouch.
yeah. So I love the idea that the wife and the shaper are giving you a more accurate reflection of yourself. because I think that TR is onto something here.
I mean, and TR in the DR, hearing a real shaper talk real stuff like that, like back foot surfing off the rail or turning off the rail to generate speed versus front foot snowplow. Uh, like he's exactly right. But I wouldn't have neither the knowledge nor experience. Like when I hear him say it, I say, "Oh, duh,"
Yeah.
and then I can think about my own surfing, right? Or we can all think about our own surfing.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
but
Tony's
yeah,
not, TR is Tony Roberts, so not a shaper, but
sorry,
professional surf photographer and
guy who knows
high,
his surfing.
yeah, high level surfer,
Yeah.
obviously still to this day. But I agree with you. So I think he is onto something, and I think that this is the reason why I wanted to play it is this represents a larger truth, which is your, and we've all also touched on this in the past, is your self-perception of your own surfability is inaccurate, period. For all of us, you know what I mean? And so you can watch video footage and that'll be pretty humbling. That always is. But there's also additional people in your life. And this is actually valuable. Like having people kind of reset what you're, the way that you are perceived by the world is super valuable. The opposite is being alone in isolation. You end up becoming angry, curmudgeonly. You think everybody else is the assholes, you know, and you're the asshole. So having these people around you to kind of soften you, to give you a more realistic perception of oneself is super valuable. And that might be exactly what was happening. This wife knows you so well. She, in fact, knows you're surfing well enough. I'm presuming the shaper has seen you in the lineup. They do know who this guy is. And so he's using his ability as well. And they designed something perfectly for you. It's just your perception was so far off that you couldn't quite read it.
It would be great. It would be a great resource, I feel, if there was somewhere where you could send video of yourself or whatever to a panel. Like, let's say because TR in the DR, uh, surf photographers have given me more vital information than almost anyone, right? They stare at surfing. They stare at the minutia of surfing. They have to know surfing so well and like across a variety of surfers that they have to know when A is going to happen or B is going to happen or whatever, right? So they know all of these things. Combine that with a shaper who knows boards and all this so well. Send your video in, whatever they say, you submit to it.
Yeah.
You just say, okay, great. You've seen me and doesn't matter what I want to be because you're exactly right. The feeling shame and humbled by watching yourself surfing, that's funny for a minute, right? I mean, it's funny to feel that deep shame, to realize that, wow, I'm not as, and every non-pro surfer has the same exact reaction. Nobody, man, it's the, we've talked about this before. It's the ones who are the most embarrassing are the ones who think they're ripping, but they're
Yep.
still not. Like, I mean, we can point to Elo for sure. Elo didn't post all of his surfing pictures, which he hasn't posted since, because he thought he was just being honest. He thought he was shredding. He thought his bash off the lip was
Post
adjacent.
worthy.
Yeah, was post worthy. Was adjacent to what everybody sees in surfing. Was adjacent to an Idolo bash off the
Yeah.
lip. Uh, so like that's a whole different thing though. But like feeling shame, there's no value there other than to then realize you kind of suck. But this right here provides a way forward, right? Maybe 6'10" single fin for you. Maybe a 5'5" fish for somebody else. Maybe like there's so many craft out there. There's even 9-foot custom shaped styrofoam, polyurethane, uh, uh, quad, asymmetrical sups. Did you read Sam
No,
George's thing?
no.
Sam George wrote some piece of crap for the inertia where that's
I
what he
think,
rides. He rides he describes it lovingly as a custom shaped 9-foot styrofoam and polyurethane asymmetrical quad with a carbon fiber paddle.
wow. Okay. Yeah. Follow Sam George for more good tips. I like the idea of not, this was why it's valuable to go to a shaper and be like, hey, here's kind of what I'm thinking, but you take the lead. Let the shaper decide because the shaper is going to have a much more realistic reflection than you will.
Unless that shaper is Matt Biolis, who again, I've brought this up before on the program. multiple times I've been with Matt Biolis and said, Matt, you've seen me surf enough. And even if you haven't seen me surf enough, you know how I look and you can
Yeah.
imagine how I surf. Like there's not some, I'm not an outlier here. There's not like some, oh, you know, you actually rip. Like, and Matt will get so angry at me every time. Fuck, I fucking know how you surf. Yeah. And come on, Matt. You're acting like there's all kinds of possibilities here. There's one, you know how I surf, but yeah, Matt Biolis
Well,
does not like to tell you how you surf.
Matt's busy meeting production quotas. You know, he's building a lot of boards. Even for his team riders, he's got hundreds of those going out every year. So doesn't have time to deal with you. But speaking of one's personal or self-perception, I've had a weird, this is adjacent to the conversation we're having about the surfing, but I've had a weird thing happen in my adulthood, just recent years, where if I ever see reality TV, Vanderpump Rules, let's say, something like
Yep.
that, like trashy reality TV where there's the douchebag male character, I see a version of my, like a percentage of myself in that behavior or the way that they're posturing or the way that they're acting that makes me adjust my behavior. Sometimes it's a younger version of myself, you know,
Oh,
but I'll see like them acting a certain way and just find it so distasteful that I'm like, I can relate to it in a certain way, and I so don't want to be that douche. And I find it's actually beneficial to me. The little bit of shame that I feel from it makes me adjust my behavior.
see, I mean, that's the thing, though. That's what I'm saying is shame is a
Yeah,
good tool if it leads to adjustment. The problem with being shamed or feeling shameful of your own surfing is it doesn't lead to adjustments. I don't think typically, right? I mean, it could lead to both a physical adjustment, like, oh man, I really do see like I'm bending at my waist, not my knees. That one's a tough one. Speaking
yeah.
of, let's get into that real quick. The How awkward do you feel when you're bending at the knees on a surfboard?
Um, I don't know.
I always feel real awkward, like I'm squatting down to take a dump or something. Might be, might be just
Yeah.
like Colin Jost in his surfing
So
pictures.
here's what you need to think, and this is coming from conversations with Gerlach, is you should never be upright anyways. Like if
Yeah,
you're ever getting to your feet and standing all the way up and
you're
then
wrong.
trying to figure out when to squat or bend your knees or whatever, that's off. So you're in a laying position going into a standing position, but you never go fully standing. You go from laying to,
Squatting.
yeah. And when you're paddling into the wave and you're looking down what is essentially a water, you know, slide, you're using the momentum of that slide to go into the bottom turn. And there's really no reason for you to get in an upright position ever. You're just going from pushing the board underneath your feet, and then you're in that squat right there at that moment, riding the momentum of the wave down into the bottom turn. You want to always maintain that little squat posture from the takeoff
Okay,
onward.
man, the
So
squat posture for lanky man is really awkward because there's a lot of you squatting down there.
totally. Yeah, it's tough. The taller you are, the tougher it is for sure.
Yeah,
You can, I think, adjust your body's ratio, your body, if you just get thicker. You need to add
yeah.
muscle. And so your lankiness doesn't seem as, or your tallness doesn't seem as lanky.
Maybe then I can become Jimbo Fisher. I mean Jimbo Peregrine.
Whatever that dude's name is.
Jimbo Peregrine, I think it is, isn't it? Pellegrin?
Yeah, something like that. Peregrine, something. Well, this is another call coming in from a listener that relates exactly to what we're talking about.
David Lee and Chaz, here's a question for you guys. If you had to design a board or choose a board or whatever that you would ride from tomorrow through the rest of your life till the end of surfing and or till you die, what board would it be? Things to consider. You may want to just say, I want to ride thrusters and performance boards, and by the time I'm too old for those, I don't want to surf. Or you could say, I'll choose a longboard because I want to surf into my 70s or 80s. Or middle of the road, it could be the CI mid, or you could say I would design a board that's 6'6", because I don't think I'll be any bigger, blah, blah, blah. But it's the board you're going to ride no matter what for the rest of your life, traveling, non-traveling, till you die. So curious what that would be for either of you and kind of your thoughts behind that. Thanks.
Don't say a high performance shortboard. I know you
No,
are.
I was thinking that, but then I was realizing, no, it's got to be, I would do a short fat, like 5'5", squishy thing, like volume, as much volume as a, you know the ones, you know what I'm talking about.
A fish?
Fishy, like, but it's not so fish-esque.
See, I think we're on the same page. I was thinking Asher Pacey, and what the surfing that Asher Pacey does is the style of surfing I would love to be able to do. He
Yeah.
goes super fast.
Yes.
Speed is great. Those boards are easy to paddle. He turns just enough, like he's cracking the lip when he needs to. He's doing full roundhouse cutbacks and banking off the whitewash. So there's plenty of maneuverability in the board, but he's not necessary. I mean, he's blowing the fins out. I wouldn't be, but so he's riding album surfboards. And I think when he first came on the scene, he was riding more traditional style fish. But the stuff that I see him ride now, it's a fish board with like a narrower tail. Like there seems to be a wing in the tail that brings it in real narrow. So you get more maneuverability and high performance, but it still has all the speed and the easy paddle ability. So I agree with you. That's kind of where I would want to be. That's the style of surfing I would love to be doing. The problem is if you get heavier, you need more board. So this will keep you in check. This is like, if I can only ride this one board for the rest of my life and I put on 10 pounds and I can't ride the board anymore, guess what? I need to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah, no, it's a good call, I feel. And I feel an under discussed part of our surf conversation is how pain in the assy certain boards are to travel with. I've never traveled with a longboard, but I see people in the airport with a longboard, and I think that it looks like it's not worth it, to be quite frank. It looks like
Mhm.
it is not worth surfing to lug that dumb thing around. Same is true. You know that Zevin Howard, God bless his soul, has made me enjoy mids. I've never taken my mid on a trip because I don't have a board bag that fits a mid, right? Like anytime
Yeah.
it's time to go travel, I'm going shortboard. And this 5'5" ish thing, it fits in any board bag.
It's a
Easy,
great point. Yeah, it's a great
easy to
point, and
pack,
it fits in the car too. So
fits in the car.
the, that's the other problem is you have a giant board bag, difficult to lug around. Then you get to the airport or get to your car rental place, and it's like I either need a giant van or we need to put these on top of the car, which is a hassle. Whereas if you just have the single 6 foot bag, and those boards are glassed heavier than a high performance shortboard, so if it gets dings, you can kind of
It's
fix it
fine.
easier. It's not
You
going to
put
fall
wax in
apart
it.
entirely. Yeah,
You just rub wax in the ding hole. But
exactly. In the ding
with
hole.
with the speaking of travel, also, like I have a pair or a pair, I guess it is a pair of a set of the FCS like soft roof rack, the
uh
like one that folds that you jam in your board bag. And it's totally practical and it's totally works. Weighs basically nothing. You throw it in your board bag, it's not going to ding your board. You know, it's all good stuff, those things. Anytime I get to the car rental and I can't figure out a way, either there's too many people or just not that I'm gonna have to put that thing on the roof, bring it. I have such like a deep depression for that moment of like for some reason, and it's not even that big a hassle, but it feels, especially most, I think the surf trips I go to are hot weather. So you're
yeah,
sitting out in the car rental, sweating buckets, just trying to figure out, remember which is the way that the thing feeds through the teeth, so the teeth bite instead of slide. And every time I'm learning it anew, each and every time. And then you get on the road, you're like, did I do it right? Is it reaching out the window, feeling up? Is the board there? Is it like, planing out like a sail? Is like the stress of that is 5-5. Give me 5-5.
it's at the most stressful part of your travel day too.
Yep.
You've landed after a long day, the family's raring to go. They're like, why'd you have to bring a surfboard?
Yep.
So yeah, it's a hassle.
It's a hassle, even like at its most perfectly designed. I feel that
Yeah,
whatever that modern surf soft rack is like a genius invention. Even as a genius invention, it's just like, are you kidding me right now?
I
Are
know.
you kidding me?
Surfing's a hassle. Surfing
It's
sucks.
it's the biggest hassle.
Um, moving on, did you watch any of Stab High?
I saw one clip of
Oh,
I saw a clip of some kid doing an air, and somebody had sent it. They might have sent it to both of us, and we're wondering if Kalohe and Dino had given him a bummer score,
hmm.
like a 5. I don't even know what the clip. I watched the clip twice, and I thought to answer directly your question, I thought, did I short sell this thing? So watched that one clip twice and came to the conclusion I did not. These are tricky, nifty airs on a tricky, nifty air section of a pool. It's nifty and it's tricky, which I ain't into, full stop.
You missed it. It was lots of fun.
I can imagine the commentary was fun and that the boys in the booth were fun and that the jibber jabber online was fun. I could see the adjacency being fun. The tech air thing to me is not very fun.
It was more fun than the Rio event is right now. I'll tell you that much.
But the Rio event, I mean, we could spend the next 28.5 hours really quickly at a New York pace listing the things that are better to watch than the Rio event is right now.
That's true. But what I will say in support of the Stab High event, because I really did enjoy it, is it was educational. That's where I got kind of the biggest
learning the grabs and the rotations and all that.
For sure. And then also learning about who the up and coming surfers are. Like they keep their finger on the pulse of what's going on, who's doing what around the world. And those are the people that get the invites to these events. But it's a lot of names that I'm unfamiliar with. And then they're awesome. They're really, really good surfers. And then I follow them on Instagram and actually, now I'm a fan as well. So yes, learning about rotations and grabs. I skateboarded recreationally when I was a kid, but I really didn't follow it enough to like have an education on what's what. But I learned a lot through that. And then they did a good job explaining what was what and putting it up on the screen, showing the variations. It just looks like a full rotation air to me. And then you realize, oh, somebody's grabbing and they're grabbing in a really difficult position. They explain why that's difficult. So I just found it to be educational in addition to being fun.
Well, that's good for Stab. Good for Stab. Again, though, nifty grabs, difficult grabs, and tough rotations, I totally appreciate in skateboarding and in snowboarding. It seems like ramming a round peg into a square hole in surfing to have all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't sit right with me.
So where another thing that I've never realized before, but this supports your argument a little bit, is how much style matters in airs. Because I think I was always just so impressed by the actual maneuver itself that I never really accounted for style. But there's a kid from Malibu named Ryji Masuda, or I think it's Ryji, Ryji. Masuda is his last name. He's a regular footer. He rides.
Is he Masuda's kid?
I think he might be. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet.
He's got to be.
What's it? Taki Masuda?
Takeda Masuda? Takeda. I know we're embarrassed right now that maybe I'll just delete this little section. I should totally know. Anyways, Ryji Masuda he's regular footer, rides Timmy Patterson's. He's sponsored by Ruka, I think. And he was doing a bunch of straight airs, but just really like he'd get him kind of boned out and they'd be super stylish. He'd do a really sick grab with it. And he would always land in incredible transition, to where it didn't even look like he had done an air.
Which to me, this is where surfing should stop, right? I mean, I think a lot of like snowboarding half pipe went bad here too. Of the most stylish air I've ever seen in my life, I feel in snowboarding is a Nicholas Mueller method, where it's like art in the sky. It is one thing. It's not muddled with spin. It's not muddled with like funky grab hand, right? Like, because a lot of those grabs aren't appealing. Like difficult as all heck, but like a melon grab and stuff, they're like, ugh, like, why are you doing that? Like even some stale fishes and stuff, I'm like, ooh. But Nicholas Mueller method but we as humans cannot stop. We cannot stop the progression, right?
Yeah.
And so then we're gonna start throwing spins and hard, but smooth, clean.
I think there's you know, it's difficult to score. It's difficult to account for style in a scoring format. And, a Tom Curran carve or whatever. I mean, I know he won world titles, but it's like when you just see like a classic image of him doing a turn, it's like that wouldn't necessarily score big in an event if he did that. And I think it was the same way to watch Masuda surfing, where he didn't win the event, he didn't make the final, but every single wave that he got, every single air that he did, those stuck with me longer. Those are the ones I'm still thinking about today over anything that Jacob Zekle did in the final,
Did Jacob Zekle win?
He made the final.
See, I mean, then
He
that's
didn't win.
but that's a problem with that kind of aerial, not just surfing, but that kind of aerial, rewarding those kinds of airs. Like Jacob Zekle, let's just be frank, has probably the worst style, or as bad a style as any surfer.
Yeah.
His style is built for that kind of air, right?
Yeah.
And he does those kinds of very tricky airs, as good as you can do them, or top of class. Is that the kind of surfing you like to watch? Is
No,
that
not
how you
me,
think surfing
there's
should be watched?
not but there's he's got plenty of fans who are into it. So to each their own.
Damn those fans.
I know, I agree. So those fans outnumber us by a large, large margin, unfortunately.
Give me clean, simple beauty. Like that's what I
Yeah.
want to see. I want to see and that's the thing. Getting back to ballet. Nobody's inventing new ballet moves. And Hemi had a private with like a next level private class with like some next level instructor who, so he was like very theatrical, wonderful guy who's just like, you've got to take the raisin that is classical ballet and squeeze the last bit of juice out of it, right? So thinking of classical ballet as a raisin and squeezing the juice out of that raisin, where nobody's inventing new ballet moves. These ballet the ballet positions and what you do has been codified and is set in stone. Nobody's inventing new stuff, right? It's set in stone because it is absolutely beautiful. And of course, classical ballet is different from modern dance, is different from breakdancing, is different from whatever. But still, you have this real pure form where I guess as a purist, give me, the method air has been codified. Let that be, right? But whatever Jake Zekle is inventing, that is there's no historical, backing. There's
Reference
nothing.
point. Yeah.
There's just you're doing freak stuff, which is I don't like freak stuff. I don't like freaky modern weird stuff. Like it's cool for me when it gets like if a Jacob Zekle air is now in 30 years in the future, 30 years, 300 years in the future, it's like, ooh, this is the, pinnacle of style, but it's not. It's all of it's ugly. Let's just be
Well,
honest. It's technical,
that's
ugly.
the secret ingredient is time. And so it's like if that does stand the test of time, then that proves that it had value in me, but it won't,
It
And
won't.
so
We know it won't. The airs
exactly.
the
So
airs have stood the
with
test of time.
what's that?
I mean, I think the airs that are the old airs are the ones that stood the test of time. I think Zoltan Torkos is proof positive also of this, right? Of like kick flipped out. It was so hideous, and people can, yes, do kick flips now on a surfboard. It looks so bad that thankfully nobody does them.
It's also just not functional. So that's undermines the whole purpose from the get-go. But I agree with what you're saying, and I think ballet is a good reference or metaphor because it's all about refinement at a certain point. Like
Yeah.
the things that stand the test of time, human beings acknowledge or just are drawn to. And so it's about refining the essence of that thing over and over. And so with cooking, you know, get good ingredients, tomatoes and olive oil. And you cannot beat that. And so chefs invent molecular gastronomy and try to do weird, wacky stuff. And it's just like, no, it's all a lesser version. Anytime you start manipulating and doing and adding, it's just a lesser version than the purity of the thing itself.
And I feel people can be mistaken in that thinking, if everybody's just using olive oil and, whatever, good salt and good olive oil and good whatever, that everything tastes the same. But no, that's the beauty of it is flair, personal artistry will come out in the same ingredients, right? Like
Yeah.
you could give 4 different chefs the same exact ingredients all of their food could taste, you know, the refined palate could definitely taste like, ooh, okay, this one has that extra thing, right? Which I think is true for all the classical arts of like, it's you're playing the same notes, you know, violin notes, or you're dancing the same steps, or you're doing the same stuff, but it's your artistry that brings a new life to something that is the dried out raisin.
Totally. And the diners in that metaphor analogy would prefer different ones. You know,
Yeah.
diner A would like chef B or whatever it is. And so that's what's beautiful about it as well. The other thing that I just noticed that's worth kind of commenting on is young Cruz Denofa, who we have seen do really crazy flips and rotations in the pool. He showed up on the screen. I didn't even recognize him because he's sprouted. You know, he's gotten bigger. And he was trying to do an air that we had seen him do that he went viral for doing in the past, and he could not do it.
Yeah.
And he kept trying it over and over and over again, and he couldn't do it. And it was like, he is now 20% larger than he used to be, and he can't fit the rotation into the same space that he was able to fit it in when he was 20% smaller. His boards are now bigger, his body is bigger, and it was a really kind of interesting thing. It was like he could execute this thing flawlessly for a few years there, and now this one moment he's going to need to figure out an adjustment, you know?
Well, I mean, I guess that's where he gets made or broken in terms of can you figure it out? Because there's different kinds of airs or different
Yeah.
kinds of things to do for your body. You can't go back and dance the same way you danced when you were 12, but can you figure out, can you take that and the, you know, I guess information that your DNA now has baked into it of how to do stuff and grow it up with you?
Totally.
But I
And
think
he was,
tons of people can't.
yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he can or if he figures it out, because he was clearly frustrated. You could see that he knew that he could do it. He's done it
Yeah.
100 times before, maybe not 100, but he's done it dozens of times before. He's got the thing greased, and he just couldn't figure out what was going on. And it's like, dude, I don't even recognize you because you've changed so much. It's like almost he didn't recognize that he had changed, you know?
I mean, it's a real hard part of, I think, prodigy level stuff. It's also a hard part of when people or kids start doing something, like Austin, for example, in his dressage. At some point, when you have that growth spurt, can you keep your body, you know, how does it develop? Like the growth spurt is the giant wrench, I feel, in young talent is can you either you're going to be a super shorty, which those people, I mean, surfing favors the short generally. Uh, but if you have a spurt, then man, are you going to be able to figure out how to work your new body into what you used to do?
If he doesn't have the spurt and he stays small, he can transition into jockey
Yeah.
instead of
Perfect.
dressage.
Uh, so real quick, I had some DMs during the stab high thing, rage filled that it wasn't like the second day wasn't airing live or something like that. Was there technical issues or something?
Yeah, I got a couple messages too. Apparently, the issues were on I guess Stab has an app, and maybe the app wasn't working. I just watched it on my phone from Stab's website because I don't have the app. So I went to their
Yeah.
website on my phone using Safari, and I had no problems at all.
And then also speaking of things that weren't aired, I also got a lot of rage DMs about people wanting to find the JBay event that was also not aired.
I know that was a bizarre one too.
I mean, did they
There was
record it?
no live stream for the JBay event.
Did they record it and we'll release it later as a standalone? Like, why hold the event then?
I don't know what their plan is for the media or for the content. They did show clips on Instagram, so they were definitely filming the event. I just don't know if they're going to release a video of it. And I mean, it seems stupid to run the event and not live stream it.
I mean, but if you're not going to live stream it, you know, it's not like it's one of the things that event is not a thing that is like affecting the world title race or anything, right? That
Right.
would be something totally fine as you know, a film, like a documentary or something. We took, you know, some great surfers down JBay and let them have at it.
Well, yeah, I have no idea what the plan is. I'm under the impression that even the surfers themselves did not know that it was not going to be broadcast. The surfers maybe they weren't told it was going to be broadcast, but they were under the assumption that it
You just
would be.
assume. Yeah.
So if they're flying all the way to South Africa and they're like thinking that they're going to get some profile bump from this because it's going to be broadcast, they were disappointed that it wasn't.
Oops.
Well, I've got a potential kook and curran.
Let's go.
This is one that I would never have thought of, but it's kind of compelling. Boys, at the risk of overanalyzing syntax and or semantics, I'd like to put forward a candidate for kook and curran. Individuals who call pipe the pipeline. Gerry Lopez and Greg Noll are two people who can rightfully refer to the wave at Aukai Beach Park as, quote, the pipeline. I'd imagine someone like Butch Van Artsdalen fits into this category as well, but short of those guys, anyone else adding the grammatical article the before the noun pipeline is out of their league. I challenge you both to name a single intermediate surfer or professional for that matter who casually refers to the wave at Aukai as the pipeline and doesn't sound like a dork. I think it's strictly reserved for the elite of the elite or for total kooks like my second cousin Robbie when he sees a generic photo of a surfer in a tube at the KFC in Cincinnati airport and says, hey, that guy's in the pipeline. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking this as an English teacher in Central Europe, but what are your thoughts? Keep working or whatever, Dr. Scholl.
I think he's on to something. I just need more evidence from the top, right? Like I need, if he's got, who are his two examples, Gerry and who?
Greg Noll, which I've heard both of them definitely. I hear Gerry only refer to it as the pipeline.
Then letter of the law, this is a kook and curran because I've never heard any intermediate, but I have heard a bunch of kooks talk about the pipeline.
So I have one little catch here that I need you to think about. Is it a cultural thing? Like, do Hawaiian people refer to it as the pipeline?
That would be one bit of information that we might need, but I don't think so. No. And I'm going to say no. I've spent enough time in Hawaii. I've never heard anybody call it, any local brada call it the pipeline.
Okay. So I'm not going to cement this one in quite yet. I would like listeners in Hawaii to send me an email, surfsplendor@gmail.com. Send me an email and just give me kind of an overview. Like, do you ever hear anybody refer to it as the pipeline?
It's better this way. This clears us of cultural appropriation as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I like it. I like the way Dr. Scholl is thinking because this is very close.
I like it also because it's, exactly as you said, it's nothing I would have ever thought about. But this is legitimate letter of the law, kook and curran. This is something that Gerry Lopez does and the kook does.
And as soon as he said it, you're absolutely right. My brain made a distinction for Gerry. Like, I know that Gerry speaks that way. My brain processed it because I associate that with him. I just never came to the forefront that nobody else uses it.
Thank you, Dr. Scholl.
And I've got a little bit of history here. From the EOS of surfing, Matt Warshaw, I just wanted to find out where that name, I had heard stories about where the name pipe came from. And so I just got on the EOS and got a little information for us to share with listeners. Matt said, quote, there are competing claims as to who was the first surfer to ride pipeline, but the honor usually goes to Phil Edwards of California, who paddled out on a 4-foot day at what was then called Bonsai Beach in mid-December of 1961. Then returned the following morning with filmmaker Bruce Brown when the waves were 6 to 8 foot. Edwards rode a beautiful 8-foot cylinder that showed up on Brown's 1962 surf film, Surfing Hollow Days. It was board maker Mike Diffenderfer, also a Californian, who suggested to Brown that he call the break pipeline after noticing that the waves looked like the giant concrete pipes being used in a nearby construction project.
Thank you, Matt Warshaw, for your actual work. And those of you interested should all sign up for EOS. Subscribe. It's easy.
I had the reason why I looked it up is because I have heard that it was named after those construction project, large concrete tubes that were being used across the street from the surf spot. But I was like,
really?
Yeah, but I was like, the wave itself is so cylindrical. You don't need to see something to remind you that that looks like a pipeline. But I guess if it is there, and it kind of makes sense that there would be, I don't know.
But also, Also, you don't necessarily like, we take it for granted that it was named after, of course, obviously it's this perfect tube, right?
Yeah,
It would
exactly.
be named after that. But it also has other features like, it's real close to the beach, so it shakes the sand essentially when it's breaking big. So it could have been called like the Bonsai Thunders or something like
Yeah,
that, right? Like
earthquakes.
earthquakes, exactly. You don't, I mean, it's easy to see now that it's cemented, but there's other things. Could have been called coral heads.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we will get back to whether or not the pipeline gets cemented into Kook and current
But it's
status.
looking good.
It is looking, I'm feeling good about it. But speaking of surf history and setting the record straight, quote, big wave legend Keala Kennelly lashes surf media for not putting respect on her name. And that article was followed by a secondary article that says, quote, breaking World Surf League solely to blame for the cruel and sloppy smear of big wave icon Keala Kennelly. What is going on in Keala Kennelly land?
Bam, bam. Keala Kennelly came out as she sometimes does. I like that she usually warns her followers on Instagram. I think she said screed incoming, or something like that. Let everybody know, and then lit into surf media for failing to recognize that uh, there were basically women before this current crop of women. You know how much praise and I mean everybody does the like the mainstream surf fan, and let's call him male, uh used to routinely make fun of the women surfing. This year, starting last year, I feel, and this year especially, it's like on, right? Like the dudes are engaged, they're loving the performances, they are out there cheering. Nobody, I feel, especially like that Chopu event and Pipe too, nobody was flipping away when the women paddled out. Like everybody was
Yeah.
more engaged. And then yeah, like all the platitudes and accolades and everything, very, very well deserved for this crop of women. Keala Kennelly wanted to go on the record to say, Rochelle Ballard, me, these other ones, there's people who have been doing this for a long time. And I get it, that part of the argument. But usually it's best when other people say that. Like if Keala would have reached out to me and said, hey, you know, maybe do it if you feel motivated, do a story about this, right? That everybody's all high on women surfing now, but women have been out there charging, especially I think, I think Keala charges no doubt, right?
Yeah.
And I think
But
the argument with Keala is that she oftentimes doesn't land or doesn't stick the landing, let's say.
well, yeah, that's an argument. She won the Piahi event without completing a ride.
Yes.
But the specific correction that Keala was
In the
giving in this
specific one.
post.
Yes. So the second one, but I feel that was her main bone. And then the other bone was buried and that she was super pissed about too was that the World Surf League, she blamed surf media, but it was not surf media. The World Surf League claimed that Tati's 10 out at Tatiana Weston's Webb's 10 at the Tahiti Pro was the first 10 out there for a woman ever. And Keala Kennelly said, absolutely not, do not wash the historical record. I had a perfect 10 out there in 2001.
Right.
Sela.
Yeah. So, and Keala even said, like, I tried to find supporting evidence of my 10 out there, and I had to search deep into Google to find one little article written by some small Honolulu paper that, one of their local surfers got a 10-point ride in Tahiti, which brings up another kind of point, which is the WSL's website does not archive surf history at all. In the comments section on Beach Grit, a couple of people posted links to like, look at how silly this is. And one of them was to Tom Curran. If you look at Tom Curran's athlete profile on the WSL, the only event that it shows that he even competed in was a JBay event in recent years as a Heritage Series heat. It does not even acknowledge his 3 world titles, any of his contest wins, his illustrious surf career. You know what I mean? It's like, it's incredible.
I mean, which is totally stupid and negligent and awful, especially if you're going to call yourself the global home of surfing. And also, on top of that, real easy fix. Just throw stinking Matt Warshaw a couple $100,000 a year and basically license the entire encyclopedia of surfing. Matt Warshaw's done the work. It's all there.
Yeah.
Just license it from him, stick it on the site so people actually know. And also, when you have a question, probably costs more than a couple $100,000 a year. Dude, Matt Warshaw deserves more than that, because they could ask him before writing a press release, oh, hey, Matt, was this the first 10 at Chopu for a woman ever? Matt would have very quickly said no. Matt knows.
Yeah, exactly. And
But-
Matt, by the way, part of what he's been archiving in the last couple of years, it was a specific project, was contest results.
Yes.
He set out to just do the actual data entry of logging contest results from all of surf history. So that is one that he's already done. And for the record, he would do it for way less than a couple $100,000 a year. He'll do it
Reading,
for $5 a month.
I mean, stinking, they should, but like, just license it. Just say,
I know.
they
Yeah.
license out just the Encyclopedia of Surfing, brought to you by the World Surf League, right?
Yeah.
Easy as that. You have all boxes ticked, all questions answered. Reading that, I don't read, I realized. Somebody, a dear friend, sent me that press release and said, this is what she was talking about. She wasn't talking about surf media. She was talking about this right here. And the press release from the World Surf League. I realized I never read press releases from the World Surf League. I will cut and paste bits to make fun of, but I will never read them in whole. I read that one and realized, I think, that AI is entirely writing it. That was
Really?
so gobbledygook. It was like, Tatiana Weston Webb got the perfect 10 as she slid in behind the curtain of a giant tube maker doing tube dance turns. Like, it was so odd. I mean, it almost makes me want to bring it up to read right now, because it really is worth. Bear with me.
Okay.
Uh,
Somebody this week asked me for a reference for a job that they're applying for that's like a law enforcement position. So when I got the questionnaire from the law enforcement agency, it's very formal, I guess.
yes.
And so I wrote my responses, and then I thought, after I read back my responses, I sound like AI. When I'm trying to write somebody a recommendation for a job, you just speak in these like glowing platitudes, kind of.
It's
And I
true.
got to the end of it, and I was like, they're gonna think an AI wrote this. Like, I just had it. They sent me a questionnaire. I had it submitted through the bot, so I didn't have to deal with it, because there's so little specificity and no criticism at all.
Listen to this. Despite, this is quote from the World Surf League's presser following the Tahiti Pro. Despite losing to eventual winner Fierro, Tatiana Weston Webb, Brazil, made history today with the first perfect 10 ever from a woman at the Tahiti Pro. Weston Webb dug deeper to paddle over the ledge and into a huge set wave, making it to the bottom and almost catching her rail in the critical part of the wave, only to recover and put herself deep in the barrel behind the heavy Chopu curtain.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
that sentence right there is, or phrase is, I mean, Weston Webb dug deep to paddle over the ledge and into a huge set wave. So she's over the ledge into a huge set wave already, right? Making it to the bottom and almost catching her rail in the critical part of the wave, only to recover and put herself deep in the barrel behind the heavy Chopu curtain. Like, that is absolute. It's either somebody who has never written or watched surfing in their life, or it's AI. It's not,
Yeah,
it's not anyone competent at all.
that is incredible. The
Yeah.
thing is, if it was AI, you would think that it would have crawled the internet well enough to know that wasn't the first 10 by a female surfer.
Except AI, though, says all AI. Derek loves to throw
Yeah.
who are the best gay surfers out there, and AI is always coming back with Greg Noll and Tom Carroll and whoever. Like,
Yeah.
AI has no idea.
I wonder where they get the Tom Carroll. AI gets the Tom Carroll thing wrong. Like, because
gay?
I mean, what?
Is it as being gay?
Yeah. Was it like,
Has it said he was? I can't remember the ones. Derek always has a list of the ones that
but I would
AI
like to,
serves up.
I would love to know the inner workings of the AI. Like, because if you look at imagery of Tom Carroll in his heyday, he's wearing these super short shorts. He's super fit. Like, is AI making a stereotype? Like they see an image of Tom Carroll and go, that guy looks gay. So they write that into the text.
Or maybe Tom Carroll could have been like a like real gay thirst trap, like gay dudes posting, photos of vintage Tom Carroll on gay chat lines and whatnot. And so then AI is picking that up. Thirst
Amazing.
trap Tom Carroll.
If AI is like guilty of stereotyping and doing all of the cultural things that become offensive to actual human beings in the modern world, then that would be amazing.
It's
They become
great.
vilified. AI gets canceled.
Great.
Well, one final thought on Keala, because this is kind of where you were leading with your initial breakdown. Is there anything she can say at this point where we don't discount her as being ranty? Because she had a very legitimate complaint here,
Very
and
totally
she
legit.
delivered it in a very calm way. I watched the video and I was like, I was expecting her to be angry. She's not expressing any anger at all. Yet it feels like a rant.
The problem is it's really hard to, I think it takes a very specific kind of person to publicly defend themselves or correct the record as it relates to them in
Yeah.
terms particularly of I did stuff really cool and people don't give me credit for it. It's really hard to take that line and have people, even if you're 100% right. Let's be frank and fair, she is 100% right. Uh, the fact that she's saying it, like she should just have that 1 degree of separation where she should go to somebody in the media and say, hey, I feel, we're friends. I feel bummed about this. Could you do a story just about how I got the first 10? Like that's still a little cloying, but I think then that nobody would even, everybody would say like, oh yeah, it was stupid WSL, right? Keala says it about herself, but that's with anything, right? Like if you really went on people talk about surf podcasting as it relates to what's the Australian one?
Ain't that swell?
Ain't that swell? And I've, there's very little press on my Surf Splendor network that like it's really really hard to do that in a way that's not like, ooh, don't do that.
Right. And I guess she has done that. That's
Enough.
become her brand.
That's the thing. It's like it's defending self. It's I'm defending me. Uh, even if she would have, what she also could have done there, and not to mansplain to Keala Kennelly, who really doesn't need it, but if she would have just pumped up Rochelle Ballard, that would have been cool. Because I feel Rochelle is not nearly as respected enough broadly as she should be. Rochelle Ballard should be, and this is the WSL's fault too. Rochelle Ballard should be like full on a known quantity for even the like half and half surf fan, right? What Rochelle did was groundbreaking, phenomenal in so many ways. And yeah, so if Keala went out and then like really pushed Rochelle, then that would have been cool, right? But instead of making it about kind of that you got the first 10 and they didn't recognize that. But also again, and it's a bummer too, because it is important. Like I had a wonderful punk rock historian email regarding this whole thing. And he said, look, the history of this stuff is important, right? Like it's important not to wash over. And it's important that we get this stuff right. It may seem trite and it may seem like, oh, who cares about Keala Kennelly's, perfect 10 that was 23 years ago. But that kind of history is important and it's important to get it right. And so
there's no question. Like that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, so quadruple shame on the WSL. I mean, the WSL, I was coming back around to them. I was feeling better, and I'm generally feeling better about them. But there's still, what I realized is why I'm feeling better about them is because they're actually listening now. They've stopped pretending they know what they're doing. And they're really, I think, attempting to incorporate or fix the broad criticisms of the recent past, including moving lower trestles to Fiji, things like this, right? So I'm going to keep pushing. And World Surf League, go stinking. You have no history. You cannot either drop the moniker Global Home of Surfing or go license Matt Warshaw's Encyclopedia of Surfing and History of Surfing. Or if you're not going to do that, which that's what you should do, hire some 5 college students to go actually do the history of surfing, which you don't want to do that. Warshaw's done it, but you cannot be the global home of surfing and be an absolute and utter black hole of any historical information. You can't claim you were established in 1976 when you don't have one Tom Curran, or you only have one Tom Curran contest on there.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's just good business for them. Like,
I mean,
them creating a portal for us to go spend time in is their business. That could be business.
And I mean, and all that's what makes baseball so great as a sport, or one of the
Yeah.
things that makes baseball so great is all the history, right? Is
Yeah.
that every single day when some guy hits 4 home runs, and all the historians are back, okay, so blah blah hit the 4 home runs on this day, and what, like, it's all that. It's all the history, which that's what gets a fan, a baseball fan for sure, like half engaged. Where surfing, there's no reason that you can't. Joe Turpel is a kind of a walking encyclopedia in a way. There's no reason that you can't or shouldn't have a robust. You just shouldn't license. It's an absolute no-brainer.
It's almost as if they don't even believe this farce themselves.
I
It's
mean,
almost
that's
as
the
if they
real
believe
truth.
it's all subjective and a joke.
That's the truth. That's why they got Colin Jost. Oh, that wasn't the World Surf League. What
Well,
do you think? What do you think
well,
about Colin Jost?
let's get to it. True grit or clickbait switch. You know what? We're presenting it by Weekend Vans this week because we have not given Weekend Vans enough love because you haven't been using the Weekend Van while you're in New York. But weekendvans.com or at Weekend Vans for your tricked out sprinter van.
I mean, it's summer. Let's be honest. It's summertime, time for road trip. I was sitting, funny enough. How often are you tempted to chime in on strangers' conversations when you have something that directly relates?
Great question.
I was,
It's infrequent. It's
but
once every month, I would say.
but sometimes you do it, right? Sometimes you hear something that is so,
I have, yes.
and that you've got to say something. Where so
Yeah.
yesterday there is a famed bar across the street from Lincoln Center. Apparently, that's where the ballet. Tyler Brower told me that's where the ballet dads hang when School of American Ballet is in proper session. So I was hanging out there. I have before also. I felt good about my instincts. But right next to me was a guy who was explaining to the bartender how his daughter is in a tricked out Mercedes Sprinter. But he was like getting the stuff wrong. And I should have done it. Sorry, Weekend Vans. I almost was going to say, hey, you bros should go to weekendvans.com and go check out some different options. If might be cheaper to have one built in California and bring it out here, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't, but I thought about it.
Yeah, I agree. You should have. And like you said, it's summertime. If you just want to rent this thing for the weekend, you could do that on weekendvans.com too. So you can get a taste of the van life without committing the full purchase.
Getting a taste of the van life, I think, is essential because
I
you might
agree.
love it more than you ever thought. And you might also, I feel that Weekend Vans probably has a couple different options of how they trick these things out. I mean, I'm sure they have their standard, but I bet
They
there's
do.
some
Yeah.
some things they can do, right?
Yeah.
And so then you figure out, oh, I want this instead of this, or I would prefer that there instead of here, or whatever. Uh, Take one out, rent it. What's the harm?
I sipped off the the foam of the weekend van once, and you know what? I liked it. I might become a full-time van life guy, not full-time, but I might commit to the lifestyle.
Part-time.
It's like talking about that barbecue sampling earlier. Like you go to Oklahoma, Kansas City, maybe you have some barbecue. You think you're leaving in 5 days, and you decide I need barbecue in my life. I'm buying a smoker, putting it in my backyard.
I'm buying a green egg.
Exactly. So
Uh,
go to weekend. What? Go ahead.
no, yeah,
Oh,
that was it.
well, True Grit or clickbait switch. Quote, Saturday Night Live's Colin Jost announced as voice of Olympic surfing, sending surf fans into peals of giddy laughter.
It's true, David Lee Scales, because Saturday Night Live is Colin Jost, who does Weekend Update for those who don't watch Saturday Night Live, or the husband of Scarlett Johansson for those who don't watch television.
Now I'm
Scarlett
paying
Johansson's
attention.
husband.
I had no idea who he was. I heard his name before. I've heard of Saturday
Oh,
Night Live before, but I don't watch it. So I
yeah,
was unaware of who he was, but now I
he's
got it.
he's been a long time, I think, writer on Saturday Night Live, and then the longish time host of Weekend Update
Got
on
it.
Saturday Night Live, but also married to Scarlett Johansson. I think they have a couple kids. Yeah, he is going to be the boots on the ground voice of surfing.
Why?
The article went on to say that Joe Turpel and Michael Parsons were going to be in the studio calling the action back in Stamford, Connecticut. And I thought, Michael Parsons, who the heck is that? And it took me multiple minutes to think, are they talking about Snips? Are they talking about Mike Snips Parsons? They must be. But in any case, this is apparently our Olympic surfing team. We got Joe Turpel and Snips play-by-play, or Michael Parsons, whoever that is, play-by-play in Stamford, Connecticut, where ESPN's headquarters is. And we have Colin Jost in Tahiti at the end of the road. So I'm assuming Colin Jost is going to be doing like vignettes, like interviewing people or stuff, flavor. And yeah.
But why Colin Jost? Does he surf?
So it said in the press release that he is something of a surfer himself or something. It is a surfer himself or something. Somebody in Beach Grit's comments posted a picture of Colin Jost surfing, and it is exactly what you'd think it would be.
Yeah. Okay.
Also gives me real pause about bending knees. He looks like he's honestly taking a dump on a longboard.
Do they live in like
No.
LA?
No, they live in New York. They're Saturday Night Live. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay.
It's
I know they're-
weird. It's weird. Like Colin Jost I think he's funny. He's not annoying or anything. I mean, maybe I don't think anybody would find him annoying. And he's funny, he's witty. He's like, dry, witty banter kind of, or not, the kind of humor. It's not like branded heavily. It's just like witty, dry, observational, funny kind of stuff. So I don't know why they think surfing needs to be funny. That's the question I have. The only thing I can think, or the thing I mostly think, is that Colin, of course, NBC is the U.S. broadcaster of the Olympics, Saturday Night Live's on NBC, that it came across Colin Jost's radar that they were looking for somebody, and he just said, "Hey, man, I want to go to Tahiti. Like, wife and I want to go." And NBC was like, "Cool, sounds good."
Yeah. That makes sense. I'm not familiar with any other comedian or SNL host or a cast member who has done Olympic commentary before, and I was unaware that this guy was a surfer.
Well, so here's the thing is, I do believe it was last year, maybe even earlier. The NBC experimented with, they had like a side stream and it was Snoop Dogg and somebody else basically calling the Olympics, and it was honest to goodness funny and good.
Right.
So I think they realized, okay, we can kind of blend here a little bit of bring in some different kinds of unexpected personalities who will provide a more enjoyable experience to the non-core fan of whatever this sport is.
You're right. I do remember that, and it was very funny and entertaining, and so
it like worked.
That makes a lot of sense now. Okay, cool. I like it.
But how mad do you think that Turpel and Michael Parsons are that they have to fly all the way from when's Fiji again? Is Fiji after the Olympics or before? Got to be after. We're coming up on Olympics.
Yeah.
So they fly from, I'm assuming they're not, or Michael Parsons certainly isn't, but I'm assuming Turpel is not calling the action in Brazil, is he?
I have not heard his voice yet.
Okay, so he's home in California. He will fly across the country to Connecticut when everyone else is going to either Paris or Tahiti. Him and Snips are going to go to Connecticut. And I want like play-by-plays from the Holiday Inn room they have to share in Stamford, Connecticut, and things like that.
That is a good point. Bummed. Real opportunity here to go to the Olympics. Oh, wait.
Yep. Your voice is going to be on the Olympics, but you're not.
Yep. Okay. Well, very good. Glad to get to the bottom of that. Let's go to commercial break, and then we will be back with Barrel or Nah. rocketmoney.com/surf. Just this week, my wife figured out she was paying a subscription for Showtime, but then also paying for Paramount Plus, which includes Showtime for free. That's precisely what Rocket Money was designed for. A modern tool that meticulously tracks the details that we easily get distracted from. It's a finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your monthly spending, and helps you lower your bills. It gives you freedom by helping you see your subscriptions in a simple dashboard and alerts you about hidden fees or increases. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Stop wasting money on things that you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/surf. Calm the clutter in your head, simplify the tedium of your financial life, and find freedom through rocketmoney.com/surf. Chaz, welcome back.
So good to be here. Can't wait.
Good.
Can't wait to get into it and really set some people straight on their bad decisions they made.
Well, this barrel or nah is in light of Stab High's pool party. Barrel or nah, pool parties.
Okay, this one I need more throwing one
Well,
or going to one.
this is, I'm talking about, yeah, participating in one. Like this has become Vegas's focal point. Like basically turning, and that's kind of what Stab High was too, to be perfectly honest. It was like turn the nightclub experience into a daytime experience, get people to buy more alcohol in the sunlight, and let's do it at the pool with DJs.
I'm gonna say David Lee Scales. This is a tough one for me, if you can believe. Uh, my initial instinct was no barrel, but I'm gonna go barrel. I'm gonna say there's a way to behave at a pool party. 90% of the ways to behave at pool parties are no barrels. Uh, like, for example, getting a drink, getting into the pool up to your chest, walking around with your drink like this, dancing, whoop, whoop. And for those who can't see, go to youtube.com/surfsplendor and you can see me up to my chest in the pool with my drink, sunglasses, dancing, getting so dehydrated that the next 4 days of my life are going to be a living hell. Uh, the other way to do a pool party is to go sit in the shade with one drink. Over drinking at a pool party is a major no-no. Major, major. You're going to want to. You do not. You stop at like one or two. You sit in the shade because a pool party is fun to be at for observation. Like, and that's what gives it the barrel for me, is it is a very fun place to people watch. People go take wrong turns. You see the guy over here who didn't put sunscreen on is too drunk that he doesn't care anymore and is just a red that you have never seen before getting redder. You have all kind the varietal of bad behavior at a pool party is peak people watching.
You're making an argument for nah, though.
Well, it's like I'm saying go and don't really participate.
I'm saying I love parties and I love pools, but I love brisket and I love creme brulee. I don't need creme brulee flavored brisket. You know what I mean? Like
I hear
these
you.
two should never meet. And you've named the reason why. It is a disaster. What I'm going to say is 10 people at a pool, you can have a little get together. More than 10 people, it becomes a party and you're not going to have the same taste of music. If there's more than 10 people, you're not all going to agree on the set list.
I mean, that's why you just put Fisher on. You get DJ Fisher on, and then everyone's happy.
And that becomes a problem too. Now everybody's all hyped up. The other thing is, if you get more than 10 people, you spill into different cohorts where there's now a young group of fit singles, but now they're intermingling with, there's a batch of married couples over there in their 40s. And guess what? One of those couples is kind of on the outs. And now the dad is gawking at the single 20-year-old chicks. And it creates this weird sexual
You're
tension.
exactly right.
And you're talking, those 20-year-old, they're sneaking booze. And guess what? They don't know how to handle their booze. So now they're dehydrated, like you said, and they had too many drinks. Now they're going to barf on the deck, or even worse, in the water. Somebody's going to get absolutely alcohol poisoned in the heat of the day. Like it's all bad news over 10 people.
Unless you are sitting in the shade watching Sodom and Gomorrah burn, then it is enjoyable.
And here's where I get angry as an old man is I remember the day when I could go to Vegas and relax by the pool.
That's true. I mean,
You're out all night partying, and it's like the daytime is for rehydrating, relaxing, getting to equilibrium before doing it again. Now I can't even go hang out at the pool.
the thing to do is go to the pool with your goggles and swim serious laps. Like just start swimming. Like you got to go around people and kind of be annoyed at them, but just like take your fitness seriously in that pool party.
You got to dodge the vomit too at that point.
I'm still barrel. It is too amusing, people watching wise.
I'm going full anti-pool bar parties. Stop the parties. Reserve the pool for decent, dignified human beings.
I understand, but it's too fun to watch.
All right, barrel or nah, Evites.
Oh, okay. Zero barrel. Like theoretically, Evites should be a great thing, right? Paperless,
Should be.
paperless, which I like a paper invite. but I'm going to get to why. I get an Evite. I click yes, attending, 2 people. I sit send. Where does the Evite go? I am never able to find that Evite in my inbox again. I don't find
Oh,
it in my calendar. I don't, it's like not connected to my stuff. I don't know if you're supposed to download Evite onto your phone, but anytime I accept an Evite, it disappears forever. And then I miss the thing, and the person will call me later and say, "Oh, I thought you were going to come." And I'll say, "What? Oh, was that yesterday?" Yeah, you got the Evite. Don't have it anymore. That paper
yep.
Evite, I set it in front of my computer on my desk and I see it there. I say, "Oh, I see
Yeah.
the address. I see the time. Boom, I'm gone."
I know it is supposed to simplify life and also be more trackable because it's digital, like you should just be able to search into your inbox and find it
I,
or whatever.
I can't. It's
As
gone.
opposed to if it's a paper, you could lose the paper, but you are totally right. And this came up this week for me because my mom, who's a little bit technically challenged, um, was complaining about an Evite situation. She's like, look, uh, I get criticized for being technologically challenged, but the technology has more glitches and errors than my old way of doing it.
It's
So
true.
you young people trying to shame me for not getting hip to the times are doing a less efficient version, like you should be adopting my way. And I thought she's absolutely right. And then a level beyond that is just it's more personal. Like the getting a handwritten anything, a physical card in the mail that took time to actually design, put together, spend money on, all that sort of stuff has meaning.
It's better.
The Evite probably gets spammed 50% of the time, doesn't even make it to the destination. And then number 2 becomes part of my junk. It is among the junk. Like if it doesn't end up in the spam folder, I'm reading it. Here's an important email. Here's an important email. This Evite isn't an important email. This is
No,
processed in my brain as junk. And then, so it's all just watered down junk.
it could be an Evite even to receive your Presidential Medal of Honor from the White House itself. And I would still like, because it came in as an Evite, I would say that's junk. That's junk talk.
So that is a great point is if it's an important enough event, people still send physical, like a
Yep.
wedding, for
Yep.
example, you still send
You don't Evite a
physical
wedding.
copies. Exactly. So just by virtue of you eviting means it's an
It's not
insignificant
important.
event.
Yeah, it means basically click yes, you're coming, and don't go because
Yeah,
person doesn't even really care. They sent an Evite.
exactly. Down with evites, no
Yep.
barrel.
Yep.
All right, final barrel or not? This one has come up. It
I
comes
think
up.
my
I
wedding
mean,
invitation was an Evite. Now that I think back on it.
did people show up?
Yeah, I think we had like 200 out of 220 or something.
Wow, people wanted to
Oh,
be there, I guess.
they did.
This barrel or not comes in regularly, by the way. I never deliver it to you. We might have delivered it once many, many years ago, but because it comes in so frequently, it is worth revisiting. And this comes from friend of the show, Mark McGinnis.
Chaz, David Lee, Mark McInnes here, calling from balmy Central Oregon. Got a barrel or not? I'm a diligent listener, but I can't remember if this one's been touched on. It's a little loaded too, as it directly pertains to one of you two hosts. But barrel or not, tattooing your lover's name on your body, or tattooing the wedding ring, or tattooing the lover's initial on the wedding finger. You see what I'm getting at here. Barrel or not. Let's hear it, boys. Keep up the phenomenal work. Adios.
By the way, for the first 25 years of my life, I thought balmy meant the opposite of what it actually means. I thought balmy
Was cold.
sounds cold.
I'll always use balmy. My great friends who used to travel the Middle East together with me, I would always call like 120 and pure humidity balmy, which is also not balmy.
No, balmy is warm,
Balmy is like a nice warm.
pleasantly warm.
Yeah, that's it.
But I learned that when I was 25 or so, and I
Yeah.
was so confused and could not fix it in my mind. I'm like, no, that can't be. everybody else has to be wrong, right? Like there's no way this is what balmy means.
I mean, I legit had balmy as like sweaty for
Yeah.
a lot of my life. So
All right. Well, Mark says this directly relates because you, in fact, have your wife's name tattooed on your neck.
I sure do, her signature. And I'm gonna say on this one, what am I gonna say here, David Lee Scales? I'm gonna say it's a barrel, but you got to be really, really, really careful about how you do and why you do and what you do. So the reason I got her signature is not just because she's my wife, or at the time she was not my wife either. She was my, I guess we only knew each other for 2.5 months. So before getting married. So it was or we knew each other for, sorry, for less than that, for like 6 weeks, I think we knew each other before getting married. So I was in one of those 6 weeks that I did this. But my wife was a professional snowboarder and had a signature model boot and a signature model board. So having a signature model something, getting her signature was more about the signature model stuff. It was, and it was her, obviously. But so it was tied to that. It wasn't like, oh, I just want to get her signature. It was directly related to that, which that could be argued as entirely uncool as well, which is fine.
Entirely unromantic. You're unromantic sizing it.
But that's what I'm saying is that, I mean, it's a romantic gesture because it's, but yeah, it was like something like that. Whereas when I see the tattooed initial wedding ring or that kind of thing, it seems an unnecessary, like this is what I'll say. If your partner has a signature that is known by people for some other reason, get it tattooed. If your wife or husband is a famous ball player or a something, if their signature is known outside of just you and your family, immediate family, get it scrawled. If not, then don't.
What possessed you to do that within a 6-week period? And do you remember your exact thoughts? And was it an overture of like, she's really going to love and appreciate this? And then how did she respond?
Funny enough, like I think I saw it because she has a good signature too. Or I thought it was a good signature, right? And so I think I saw it on one of her boards, snowboards, and I said, "That's sick. I'm gonna tattoo that on my neck." And she said, "No, you are not gonna do that." And I said, "Yes, I am." And then she's like, "Oh," and then for some reason I went out. I can't remember. There was some girl, I didn't know her, but she was like a friend of a friend. But I went out to cocktails with her, champagne cocktails in the day. And there was nothing romantic for me. It was a girl from Australia. I went out to champagne cocktails with her in the day. I came back. Wife was like, or whatever she was at that time, was like, "Where were you?" I said, "Oh, I was having cocktails with this Australian girl." And she said, "Champagne cocktails in the day?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Okay, you go get my signature tattooed on your neck." And that was it. And then I did.
So you said it as a joke, essentially, and then she felt a little threat of she wanted to brand her property, basically, and you were forced to live up to the joke.
It wasn't a joke for me. I was like gonna do it no matter what.
Okay.
And then, but that's when it went from no, you're not to you're out having, okay, you go get my signature on your neck. So the next Australian girl you have champagne cocktails with in the afternoon could see my signature.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a dynamic.
There we go. That's the story of that.
Yeah, interesting.
But
Well,
I still think that if your significant other's signature is not known outside your immediate circle, it just feels unnecessary unless you already have a lot of tattoos. Like oftentimes I will see the person who just has their significant other's initials on the ring finger, he's got that, or like on the wrist or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
there's no, like, if you're heavily tatted, obviously who cares at that point? Go do whatever you want. But for the person who doesn't have a tattoo, wants to do it as a romantic gesture, except their person is not well known, steer clear.
That's where I'm landing. And my take is less interesting than yours and less invested. I have 0 tattoos, but my take is kind of that. it's, you know, doth protest too much. Like, you don't need to prove your permanent love for this other person in a way that is that physical unless you are trying overtly to prove it, you know?
Well, and tattoos don't mean the same thing now that they used to, right? I think. I mean, it used to be a real, now with tattoo removal and with
Yeah.
cover-ups and all this kind of stuff, like getting a tattoo, it's no more permanent than not getting a tattoo, to be quite frank. Like
Right.
there's ways to, especially like, yeah, I'm not a fan of the one signifier tattoo either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Particularly on men. Like women can get away a dainty signifier tattoo, just one, a lot better. But a man who has a dainty signifier tattoo is not a very masculine look.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, hey, got to the bottom of that one. That, like I said, that tattoo related barrel and ahs come in almost weekly, and I never ever relay them to you. But I figured this one was worth it. And because they come in so frequently, people wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
Important thoughts.
Important indeed. Okay. Well, hey, beachgrid.com is where you go to get all the headlines. At Surf Journalist on Instagram. And then, of course, I'm at Surf Splendor if you want to chime in, send messages for any of this stuff. Anything else, Chaz?
I think that's just about it.
What
So weird.
time zone will you be in next week?
I will be in Paris, France time zone with Michael Parsons and Joseph Turpel.
Exciting.
Yep. They won't be there. They'll be in Stamford, Connecticut, but I will be in Paris.
Okay, sweet. Well, we will figure out how to do that time difference, and we will be here because we do not abandon the people.
We do not. I'll tell you what the hardest time zone of all is this dang 3-hour one. The large time zones are easier because it's morning for you and night for me. That's a
Yeah.
lot easier than morning for you and middle of day for me.
Mid-morning for me, mid-afternoon for you.
It's like this is peak bad. So we'll get back on track next week.
Okay, I will be here for it. Until then.
Keep work.
All right, thanks very much.
Great, thank you. Man,